Hello, my name is Arthur Haywood. I've been a resident artist at the Cheltenham Center for the Arts since the fall with Rebecca Schultz, working on paintings showing stories coming to life. These paintings are designed to excite kids about reading.
Learning to read is important because it creates opportunities for people, and continuing to read expands one's horizons. I will be proposing to display these murals I created during residency at different libraries after the show ends.
I've taken inspiration from stories such as Lord of the Rings, with this painting here with this giant eagle that's from the Silmarillion lifting a reader up into the sky. As you can see, books are falling from her backpack, and another reader is tagging along on her leg for the flight, while another reader at the bottom is reaching for them as they're floating away. This painting not only takes inspiration from Lord of the Rings, but also included characters from life, such as this little chipmunk at the corner. And I wanted to paint this scene at a larger scale. As you can see, it's a little bit smaller than me, but it's pretty large overall. I wanted to create a sense that this scene is real, almost as if I could step into the painting. I took a lot of inspiration from seeing Caravaggio paintings on my recent trip to Rome. In the Santa Maria del Popolo, I saw a lot of paintings that use a trompe l'oeil effect, where the paintings seemed so real that the figures could topple out of the paintings. And that made the scene believable to me. And I wanted to make this scene of reading coming to life appear believable and real to viewers, to excite them about reading. In the background of this scene, I also included a castle, which is from Lord of the Rings, called the Hidden City of Gondolin, where the elves secluded to hide themselves from the evil. So this painting not only just celebrates reading coming to life, but also celebrates a story that I've loved since middle school. And as you can see, the birds are floating into the sky behind her. And this painting is completed with oil paint. I worked in a very specific step-by-step process and completing a sketch of the figures, putting them all together, and then completing one section at a time. And this painting overall took me about 350 hours to complete, to create this scene of this story coming to life. I have this astronaut blasting through the wall, which is inspired by a sci-fi story called Skyward by Brandon Sanderson that I've been recently excited by. In this scene, I have the astronaut blasting through the wall as if they're blasting into our world. As you can see, the readers below are very surprised by this, and this heightens the excitement of the scene. And with the trompe l'oeil effect in this painting, I wanted it to make it appear that you could actually reach into the picture and grab the book, to make it appear that these rocks are actually coming towards us, that this scene is actually real. Because to me, when I read a lot of these stories, they are real to me, and I can believe in the scene that's happening, and I created these paintings to visualize that world and share it with viewers and readers who would also be excited by reading. I was fortunate to paint my sister, Allie, for this section of the painting, and my other sister's boyfriend, Miles, for this other section of the painting. And they sit right on top of this ledge as if this is the real world and the fantasy world exists beyond it. I used a lot of bright colors to heighten the effect of this sci-fi world with the space in the background and the laser beams coming out towards the astronaut, while the more grayscale world exists right beyond it, closer to us. And I created these paintings not only to excite kids about reading, which is important, but I think it's important because reading creates opportunities for people, and it allows people to continue to develop their knowledge. So those are the main reasons why I created these paintings, and they also allow me to share the stories that excite me. And I hope they excite you as well too.
And with this scene, you see the figures painted at a very large scale, so it really sometimes appear that you can look up at the scene and appear that the figure is floating above you. The original design for this piece was a mural proposal that I made for a library in the Parkway Central Library, showing these figures rising out of the clouds of the reader's imaginations as they're holding their books. So I painted one section of it to scale at 5 by 5 feet. And you can see the pharaohs rising out of her clouds of imagination as she's reading. These works are painted on canvas, and they are painted with oil paint, so that it took me a long time to refine the paintings, but the oil paint allowed me to manipulate the paint to make it smooth.
And these are some of the studies that I created to develop these paintings. They all started from imagination, with an idea of wanting to show an astronaut blasting into the world of these readers. So I created this sketch, which is very loose and non-detailed, from imagination, with these more like cartoon-like figures looking up at this astronaut blasting through the wall, and it was designed to figure out how I wanted to space the astronaut in the painting, whether I wanted the astronaut to be more to the right, more to the left. I could sort of figure out all these solutions before I created the actual painting. From there, once I had an idea of how I wanted to tell the story, I could go and reference individual paintings or from life to create the individual references for the painting. So this is the portrait that I referenced for the astronaut. I flipped the portrait in Photoshop to make the astronaut face in the right direction, but this is the form that I referenced for the final painting. I also referenced the figure for this section of the painting. I just posed, and I also had to do anatomical studies to make sure that the limbs were at the right scale and showing the movement of the astronaut pressing the pedal to the metal to create this story. So these studies were created from life, and this one was created from a photograph of my sister. And this also just added a preliminary step, which allowed the painting to go a lot more smoothly and quicker, because I figured out the linear boundaries of the figure. I figured out how the likeness, all these drawing solutions I figured out before I started the final painting, which allowed me to go a lot more quickly. It really facilitated the process. I did the same for this drawing of Miles, which is also in that Space Cadet painting, and for this section of the Space Cadet as well too. I really figured out the entire value range and scale before I did the final painting, which really for me allowed us to go a lot quicker. And so these studies ranged in time. For some of these figure studies, they took me about 12 hours, 12 to 15 hours, while something like creating this entire section of the scene just in graphite and black and white took me about 20 to 24 hours to complete. I created this other drawing study for the Tolkien story painting, which used a similar process. I created a drawing study originally from imagination, and I figured out the scale, how I wanted to tell this scene, the story of this giant eagle picking these readers up. And from there, I gathered references, and then I inserted them in, I printed them out and inserted them into my original sketch to see how the entire painting would fit together before I had to blow it up to 8 feet. It's a lot more difficult to make changes on an 8-foot painting as opposed to an 8 by 10 sketch. So it's really facilitated the process almost as a blueprint for a house to allow me to plan out the painting before I actually started it. And while I was working on it too, I had a clearer sense of what the final painting would look like. So for each section of this sketch, I made individual drawing studies. So for the portrait of the figure that was holding the one figure's leg as they're flying up in the air, I did this drawing study of one of my friends from a photograph, and this study took me probably about 15 to 20 hours to complete. But it allowed me to figure out the linear boundaries of what the final values are going to look like in the sense of light. I did the same for the figure's portrait as well too, and these are kept mainly small so that I could scan them and then put them together in Photoshop. As well as I did the drawing study of Rebecca's daughter. For this portrait, I did this one from life, and I used a mannequin to draw the figure as well too. Mannequins, it's hard for somebody to hold a pose like this, so with the mannequin I could pretty much put them into these impossible positions and be able to draw them from life. And I also then completed the drawing studies of hands, and then I used a mannequin for this other figure as well too. I found that a lot of mannequin clothing really looks like regular clothing too. And then I went to the Academy of Natural Sciences to draw this chipmunk, and then I think I rotated it in the final painting. But through all these studies, I created my individual drawing, sketch composition that was from imagination, and I found the more realistic references and drew them and then compiled them together to see what the final scene would look like before I finally painted it, which really facilitated the process for me. And any chance that I got to work from life while working for the mannequins, I tried to take advantage of, because there's so much life that has the highest resolution, and I wanted to make the scenes appear very realistic. So this is the process that I used to create these paintings. So overall, each of the paintings that I had in the show took me about 350 hours to complete, from the individual drawing studies to completing the paintings one area at a time. I'd like to thank everybody at the Cheltenham Center for the Arts for making this opportunity possible and being able to share it with viewers. I am currently working on a mural for the middle school library that I went to, the Elkins Park School, to show another story from reading coming to life for a mural. I also received a fellowship, the Harriet Hale Woolley Scholarship, sponsored by the Fondation des Etats Unis in Paris. This project is allowing me to create a mural to show another story coming to life for Lycée Paul Lapie. Although with current safety conditions, this project may be affected. Please stay tuned for updates. I look forward to creating more murals showing stories coming to life and sharing it with viewers.